The 80s gave us neon, synth, and shoulder pads, but also dozens of films that vanished into VHS obscurity while their flashier siblings got all the love. Ever wonder why some movies from that decade still hit harder than modern blockbusters? Here's the truth. The best films of the 80s weren't always the loudest. They were the weird ones, the quiet rebels, the box office disappointments that critics ignored, but time has proven absolutely timeless. These 10 forgotten gems still slap in 2025, and if you haven't seen them, you've been missing out on pure cinematic magic. Number 10. The Hitcher, 1986. This isn't just another road thriller. This is a nightmare on asphalt that refuses to let you breathe. Rutger Hauer plays John Ryder, a hitchhiker who transforms a simple cross-country drive into psychological warfare. C. Thomas Howell is Jim Halsey, a kid who makes one terrible decision and spends the next 90 minutes paying for it in blood and terror. What makes The Hitcher so unnervingly brilliant is how it strips away explanation. Ryder isn't some tragic villain with a sob story backstory. He's pure menace, a force of nature who toys with Jim like a cat with a dying mouse. The film bombed initially because audiences in the mid-'80s wanted their villains explained, their heroes victorious, their endings neat. Director Robert Harmon gave them none of that. Critics at the time called it too violent, too nihilistic, too empty. Roger Ebert hated it. But here's what they missed. The Hitcher is a masterclass in sustained dread. Every frame drips with paranoia. The desert highways feel endless and hostile. Hauer's performance is chilling because he makes evil look effortless, almost bored. There's a scene involving a woman tied between two trucks that became so infamous it sparked protests, yet it's shot with such restraint you barely see anything. Your Mind does the horror. The movie made just over $5 million domestically, a disaster for TriStar Pictures. But over the decades, it's become a cult masterpiece, influencing everything from No Country for Old Men to the tone of modern horror thrillers. In 2025, when every villain gets a redemption arc or a tragic origin, The Hitcher feels radical. Sometimes evil just is, and that's far more terrifying than any explanation could ever be. Number 9. Streets of Fire, 1984. Walter Hill called it a rock and roll fable, and honestly, that's underselling it. This movie is what would happen if you threw 50s greasers, 80s synth rock, comic book aesthetics, and pure, unapologetic style into a blender and hit pulse. Michael Pare plays Tom Cody, an ex-soldier who rides back into his rain-soaked hometown to rescue his rock star ex-girlfriend Ellen Aim, played by Diane Lane, from a leather-clad biker gang. The plot is simple, almost mythic, but plot isn't why Streets of Fire matters. This film is all vibe, all swagger, all neon-soaked atmosphere. It exists in a timeless nowhere, a city that could be the 50s or the far future, where gangs wear suspenders and concert venues look like gladiator arenas. The movie was Hill's passion project after 40 OH-taters made him hot in Hollywood. He wanted to create a new genre, what he called a rock and roll western. Universal Pictures gave him $14 million and expected a hit. They got an $8 million domestic gross instead. Audiences didn't know what to make of it. Critics called it style over substance, as if style couldn't be substance. But here's the secret. Streets of Fire is a pure aesthetic experience. The soundtrack by Ry Cooder is electric. The cinematography by Andrew Laszlo makes rain and neon look like art. Every fight scene feels choreographed like a music video. There's a scene where Ellen performs on stage and the camera just drinks her in, turning a concert into mythology. Rick Moranis as her manager Billy Fish is hilariously slimy, and Willem Dafoe as gang leader Raven chews scenery with psychotic glee. In 2025, when every film franchise is obsessed with lore and world-building explanations, Streets of Fire says, forget all that, just feel it. The film found life on cable and home video, becoming a beloved cult oddity. It influenced everything from The Crow to Drive. Hill tried to make sequels in the 90s but couldn't get funding. Now it stands alone, a beautiful one-off that proves sometimes the coolest movies are the ones nobody understood at the time. Number 8. The Last Starfighter, 1984. Before CGI conquered Hollywood, there was this little sci-fi film that dared to go all digital. The Last Starfighter is the story of Alex Rogan, a trailer park kid played by Lance Guest, who's secretly recruited to fight in an actual intergalactic war after mastering an arcade game. Yes, it's basically Ender's Game meets Star Wars, but here's why it rules. This movie believed in the power of video games to mean something before gaming was cool. In 1984, arcades were still seen as places for delinquents and dropouts. Director Nick Castle made gaming heroic, made joystick skills matter in the cosmos. The film used computer-generated effects from digital productions instead of models and matte paintings, a massive gamble that gave it a distinct visual style. Some effects look dated now, sure, but there's a charm to those early pixels, a pioneering spirit that modern Marvel movies with their infinite budgets can't touch. Universal spent $15 million making it and earned just $28 million worldwide, barely breaking even. Critics dismissed it as a Star Wars knockoff. But kids who grew up in the 80s remember The Last Starfighter with fierce loyalty. The Star Car is iconic. The Gunstar spaceship design still looks cool. Robert Preston as Centauri, the alien recruiter, brings a Carnival Barker energy that's pure joy. Dan O'Herlihy as the reptilian navigator, Grigg became a fan favorite with his honor and humor. The movie understands longing, that teenage desperation to escape small-town life and do something that matters. Alex isn't special because of destiny or bloodlines. He's special because he practiced. He got good at something. That's a message that resonates even harder in 2025. The film spawned a planned sequel that never happened, though a TV series was in development hell for years. Castle wanted to explore the universe more, but Hollywood moved on. Now, The Last Starfighter exists as a perfect time capsule, a movie that took gaming seriously before gaming took over the world. It's earnest, optimistic, and unafraid to be corny. In an era of grimdark reboots, that earnestness feels revolutionary. Number 7. The Hidden, 1987. This is the alien invasion movie that nobody talks about but everyone should. Kyle MacLachlan and Michael Nouri star in what looks like a standard buddy cop thriller until it absolutely isn't. An alien parasite is jumping from body to body in Los Angeles, turning ordinary people into Ferrari-stealing, bank-robbing, heavy metal-blasting psychopaths. MacLachlan plays an FBI agent who's far more than he seems, and the reveal is both bonkers and heartbreaking. Director Jack Sholder made this for New Line Cinema on a $5 million budget, and he delivered a film that blends body horror, action, dark comedy, and genuine emotion into something wholly original. The movie made just under $4 million domestically, a commercial failure that found massive life on VHS rental shelves. What makes The Hidden so special is its tone. It never winks at the camera. It plays everything straight, which makes the absurdity even better. There's a scene where a mild-mannered stockbroker suddenly robs a bank, kills a dozen people, steals a sports car, and blasts speed metal at full volume before crashing in flames. That's just the opening. The parasite doesn't have grand plans or philosophical speeches. It just wants to party and cause chaos. MacLachlan brings a quiet intensity that hints at his later work in Twin Peaks. His character's motivation, revealed late in the film, adds layers of tragedy that elevate this above typical genre fare. Nouri, as the skeptical human cop, grounds everything with blue-collar frustration. Critics at the time gave it middling reviews, calling it derivative. But The Hidden influenced a generation of sci-fi horror. The Wachowskis have cited it as inspiration. Guillermo del Toro praised its creature effects. In 2025, when alien invasion movies are all about CGI spectacle and world-ending stakes, The Hidden keeps it street-level and personal. It's about grief, revenge, and what you'd sacrifice to stop evil. The sequel in 1993 was garbage, but this original remains a tight, smart, endlessly rewatchable thriller that deserves way more recognition than it gets. Number 6, Miracle Mile, 1988. This is the most stressful movie of the 80s, and that's saying something. Anthony Edwards plays Harry, a nice guy musician who answers a payphone at 4 in the morning and gets a panicked call. Nuclear war has started, and everyone has about 70 minutes to live. The entire film unfolds in real time as Harry tries to save himself and the woman he just met, played by Mayor Winningham, while Los Angeles descends into chaos. Director Steve DeJarnat wrote the script in the late 70s, and it took nearly a decade to get made. Hemdale Film Corporation finally gave him $3 million, and he shot it guerrilla style on location in L.A. The movie made less than $2 million at the box office. Critics didn't know how to market it. Is it a romance, a thriller, a dark comedy, an apocalypse movie? It's all of those things, and that's why Miracle Mile feels so alive. The film has this manic energy, this ticking clock dread that never releases. You're never sure if the nuclear warning is real or a hoax, and that uncertainty makes every minute unbearable. Edwards is perfect as an everyman who's in way over his head. Winningham brings warmth and desperation. The supporting cast, filled with character actors like Denise Crosby and Kurt Fuller, all feel like real people caught in an unthinkable situation. There's a scene in an all-night diner where Harry tells everyone what he heard, and the group's reactions range from denial to hysteria to grim action. It's messy and human and terrifying. The film's ending is one of the most haunting in 80s cinema, refusing easy comfort or Hollywood heroics. DeJarnat crafts a love story against annihilation, and he doesn't cheat either emotion. Tangerine Dream's score is hypnotic and ominous, perfectly capturing the surreal horror of watching your world end in neon glow. In 2025, with global anxieties at peak levels, Miracle Mile hits even harder. It's a film about helplessness, about how love persists, even when hope is gone. Arrow Video released a gorgeous restoration in recent years, introducing new audiences to this forgotten masterpiece. It deserves to be mentioned alongside The Day After and War Games as essential Cold War nightmares, but it never gets that respect. That needs to change. Number 5, Near Dark, 1987. Kathryn Bigelow made a vampire western, and Hollywood didn't know what to do with it. Near Dark stars Adrian Pasdar as Caleb, a small-town farm boy who gets bitten by a drifter named May, played by Jenny Wright, and gets dragged into a nomadic clan of bloodsuckers roaming the American Southwest. This isn't your Gothic castle vampire story. This is vampire as outlaw, vampire as drifter, vampire as redneck horror show. Lance Henriksen, Bill Paxton, and Jeanette Goldstein, fresh off Aliens, play members of the clan with feral intensity. Paxton especially is electric as Severin, a cowboy vampire who treats killing like performance art. The film was made for $5 million and earned just $3.4 million domestically, a bomb that killed its theatrical life fast. But Near Dark is a masterpiece of mood and violence. Bigelow shoots the Southwest like a hostile alien landscape, all dust and blood-red sunrises. The vampires aren't seductive or romantic. They're predators, and the film never glamorizes their existence. There's a bar massacre sequence that's shocking in its brutality, a scene where Severin and the clan toy with patrons before slaughtering everyone. It's mean, darkly funny, and unforgettable. Pasdar and Wright have genuine chemistry, making Caleb's descent into this world feel tragic. The film explores addiction, family, and what you're willing to become to survive. Tangerine Dream again provides the score, giving everything a dreamy, synth-heavy pulse that contrasts the gore. Critics in 1987 were mixed, and the film got buried by The Lost Boys, which came out the same year and had studio muscle behind it. But over time, Near Dark has become the vampire film that filmmakers reference. It influenced From Dusk Till Dawn, 30 Days of Night, and countless indie horror flicks. In 2025, when vampire stories are either teen romance or prestige TV, Near Dark remains raw and dangerous. Bigelow never made another horror film, going on to win Oscars for The Hurt Locker. But this early work shows her talent for visceral, intimate violence. It's a film that lingers in your bloodstream long after the credits roll. Number 4. River's Edge, 1986. This is the darkest film on this list, and that's intentional. Crispin Glover, Keanu Reeves, and Ione Skye star in a story ripped from real-life horror. A teenager murders his girlfriend and leaves her body by the river. He tells his friends. They go look, and then they do nothing. River's Edge is about apathy, about a generation so numbed by violence and dysfunction that even murder becomes something to shrug at. Director Tim Hunter made this for Island Pictures with a script by Neil Jimenez based on the true 1981 murder of Marcy Conrad in Milpitas, California. The film made just under $5 million domestically, a limited release that scared distributors with its bleak honesty. Glover gives a manic, unhinged performance as Lane, the friend who tries to protect the killer out of some twisted sense of loyalty. Reeves, in an early role, plays Matt, one of the few kids disturbed enough to consider telling adults. Dennis Hopper shows up as Feck, a drug dealer who once killed his own girlfriend and now lives in paranoid isolation. The film doesn't explain these kids. It doesn't offer easy answers about why they're so broken. It just shows you a world where parents are absent, teachers are clueless, and teenagers drift through life waiting for something, anything, to matter. The murder victim is treated with shocking indifference by almost everyone, a commentary on how violence had become background noise in American culture. Critics were divided. Some praised its unflinching realism. Others found it too disturbing, too nihilistic. Roger Ebert gave it 3.5 stars, calling it brave. In 2025, River's Edge feels almost prophetic. It predicted our desensitization to tragedy, our social media distance from real consequences. The film is uncomfortable to watch because it asks terrible questions about complicity and empathy. Hunter never sensationalizes the violence. He just lets you sit with the horror of how little these kids care. It's a film that stays with you like a scar, a reminder that some 80s movies weren't trying to entertain. They were trying to warn us. Number 3. The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai. Across the Eighth Dimension, 1984. This movie is pure controlled chaos, and it's glorious. Peter Weller plays Buckaroo Banzai, a neurosurgeon, physicist, race car driver, and rock star who accidentally opens a portal to another dimension and has to stop an alien invasion. If that sounds insane, you're getting the idea. Director W.D. Richter made this for Sherwood Productions, with a tone that's part screwball comedy, part sci-fi action, part conspiracy thriller, and entirely confident in its own weirdness. The film features John Lithgow as an Italian-accented mad scientist possessed by an alien, Jeff Goldblum as a cowboy brain surgeon, and Christopher Lloyd leading red-suited aliens named John. It made just $6 million on a $12 million budget, a financial disaster that baffled studio executives. Here's the thing about Buckaroo Banzai. It refuses to explain itself. Characters reference events that never happened, use technology that's never defined, and operate in a world that feels fully realized despite showing you only a sliver. This was intentional. Richter and writer Earl Mac Rauch wanted to drop audiences into the middle of an ongoing story, making you feel like you'd missed previous adventures. It's disorienting and brilliant. The Team Banzai members, called the Hong Kong Cavaliers, have relationships and histories that are hinted at but never spelled out. The film trusts you to keep up, and if you can't, it doesn't care. That arrogance is part of its charm. Lithgow's performance is unhinged in the best way, somewhere between tragic and comic. Weller plays Buckaroo with effortless cool, a hero who's too smart and too busy to posture. The climax involves watermelons, jet cars, and dimension hopping in ways that make perfect sense if you surrender to the film's logic. Critics at the time were baffled. Audiences stayed away. But over decades, Buckaroo Banzai became a cult phenomenon. Kevin Smith, Quentin Tarantino, and countless others have cited it as formative. In 2025, when every franchise over explains its lore and holds your hand through world building, Buckaroo Banzai feels like punk rock. It assumes you're smart enough to hang, and if you're not, there's the door. A planned sequel called Buckaroo Banzai Against the World Crime League was announced in the credits, but never materialized. Maybe that's perfect. Some adventures are best left unfinished. Number 2. Choose Me, 1984. This is the most underrated romance of the 80s, a film that slipped through the cracks because it refused to be conventional. Keith Carradine, Leslie Ann Warren, and Genevieve Bujold star in a dreamy Los Angeles set story about loneliness, desire, and the stories people tell to survive. Bujold plays a radiotherapist who gives advice about love while being terrified of it herself. Warren is a bar owner navigating a series of doomed relationships. Carradine is a drifter who may or may not be a pathological liar. Director Alan Rudolph crafted this for Island Alive on a tiny budget, shooting in smoky bars and neon-lit streets that give everything a noir glow. The film made just over $1 million domestically, barely registering outside festival circuits. Choose Me is all mood and conversation. The plot meanders like real life, people connecting and missing each other in ways that feel painfully authentic. Carradine's character tells outrageous stories about his past, Russian roulette championships, and secret agent work, and you're never sure what's true. That ambiguity is the point. We all construct identities to make ourselves interesting, to hide our damage. The film understands that without judging it. The dialogue is sharp and poetic, filled with the kind of lines people wish they could say, in real moments. Teddy Pendergrass provides the soundtrack, soul music that aches with longing. Critics who saw it loved it, but barely anyone saw it. Roger Ebert put it on his year-end top 10 list. Rudolph became a darling of independent cinema, but never quite broke through to mainstream success. In 2025, Choose Me feels like a relic from an alternate timeline, a romance for adults that treats love as messy and complicated rather than a problem to solve. It's the kind of film that makes you want to call someone at 3 a.m. just to hear their voice. It's sexy without showing anything explicit, romantic without being sentimental. If you're tired of algorithm-generated meet-cutes and formulaic endings, Choose Me is a reminder that great romances are built on mystery, not certainty. Number 1. To Live and Die in L.A., 1985. William Friedkin made this right after The French Connection defined cop thrillers, and somehow it got forgotten. That's criminal. William Peterson and John Pankow play Secret Service agents hunting a counterfeiter played by Willem Dafoe in a neon-soaked Los Angeles that feels like a fever dream. This isn't a movie about good guys catching bad guys. This is a movie about obsession, corruption, and how easily heroes become villains. Friedkin shot it for New Century Vista Film Company with a raw, aggressive style that influenced every cop movie that came after, from Heat to Training Day. The film made just under $17 million domestically on a $6 million budget, solid but not spectacular, and it faded from cultural memory despite being better than most films that defined the decade. The car chase in this movie is one of the greatest ever filmed, a wrong-way freeway pursuit that's so dangerous and chaotic it makes Bullitt look quaint. Friedkin didn't use rear projection or green screens. They actually drove those cars the wrong way on a real freeway, nearly killing the stunt drivers multiple times. Peterson plays Rick Masters, an agent willing to cross every line to get his target. He's not charming or noble, he's reckless and selfish. Defoe as counterfeiter Eric Masters is disturbingly calm, treating murder and art with the same detachment. The film's climax is shocking, refusing the catharsis audiences expected. People walked out angry. That was the point. Wang Chung provided a synth score that's become iconic, though at the time critics found it too 80s. Friedkin's cinematography is all harsh shadows and washed-out colors, making L.A. look poisonous. The film explores how law enforcement can become indistinguishable from criminality, a theme that's even more relevant in 2025. John Turturro appears in an early role. Dean Stockwell plays a sleazy lawyer with perfect slime. Every performance feels lived in and dangerous. To Live and Die in L.A. was too dark, too morally ambiguous for Reagan-era audiences who wanted their cops heroic. But time has revealed it as a masterpiece of neo-noir, a film unafraid to show the rot beneath the badge. Friedkin made a movie about consequences, and Hollywood never quite forgave him for it. So there you have it, 10 films from the 80s that time tried to bury but couldn't kill. These movies took risks, broke rules, and paid the price at the box office, but they survived because great cinema always does. Now it's your turn. Which of these have you actually seen? Which ones are you adding to your watch list tonight? And here's the real question. Why do we let the box office decide what matters? Comment below and tell me if I'm right or if I missed your favorite forgotten 80s gem. Because honestly, if you think Ferris Bueller and The Breakfast Club are the peak of 80s cinema, we need to talk. These films prove the best stuff was always hiding in plain sight. Go watch them and see for yourself.